Hi, and welcome to What's New in Jenkins LTS. My name is Darren Pope. I'm a developer advocate at CloudBees, and yesterday, if you're watching this live, which would have been February the 8th, Jenkins LTS 2.375.3 was released. And today we're going to be talking about what all is in that release and maybe start getting ready for the next one that's coming out in March. So along with me, as always, today we have Mark Wade on. Mark, how are you doing?
Great, Darren. How are you?
Good. So this is the last of this LTS line, right?
Right. This is the .3 release. So we've done two prior to this, 4 weeks ago and 8 weeks ago. This one's right on the clock.
Very good. Misha, good to see you. Andreas, good to see you as well. For people that may not have been here with us before, what we talk about is usually the day after a Jenkins LTS release, we come on and talk about what's in it, so don't be surprised. But a lot of people still ask, what is a Jenkins LTS? And usually this is where Mark jumps in and starts explaining what is.
A Jenkins long-term support release is chosen as a beginning baseline. For instance, Jenkins 2.375 was chosen as the baseline. It's chosen, we then stabilize on that and release a .1. The base release is selected every 3 months, and we roll forward regularly. After we've chosen that baseline, we backport any latent changes to it, and that becomes the .1. 4 weeks later, we do a .2. 4 weeks later, we do a .3. And that's the common cadence. And then 4 weeks after that, we'll have chosen a new baseline and do a new .1. So our next baseline will be 2.387.1. It will come out March the 8th. Predictable cadence. We like how it works.
And this is the one thing I like about February and March. The days are always the same, except in that 1 year.
Right, exactly. It's a relief, isn't it? 28 is this nice, direct integer multiple of 7. I like that.
It works out good. So for this release, it was a nice, boring release, is what we would expect for a .3.
It was. It was a simple, well-received, and easily generated release. We like it.
So as we're looking at it right now, there were 4 items. Now, they were bug fixes, but just 4 items, which is good. That's what we want in a .3.
That's correct.
Let's see. 32 at least at the time that we're doing the stream, 32 happy people, and 0 otherwise. So that's good. That's a nice progression, actually, for only... We're right at 24 hours, if I remember right.
Exactly. We are just barely beyond 24 hours right now while we're live. And at that point already, we've got 32 positive ratings. We like it. That's good.
All right. Before we get into it, let's take a look at the upgrade guide. I don't believe there was any changes for the upgrade guide in .3, and no, there weren't. Remember, kids, always check the upgrade guide.
Yes. Please read and heed the contents of the upgrade guide. It's carefully written because we care about people having a good upgrade experience.
It's important. Yeah. We will be talking about it. Mark's already sort of let slip what the next LTS version number is, 387. Mm-hmm. I would imagine in 387, based on watching the weeklies, the .1 for that is going to have quite a few little items in it.
There absolutely will be upgrade guide entries in the 387.1 release. Absolutely. Okay. And that should be expected, right? Jenkins continues to grow. It continues to be enhanced. It continues to improve. And those improvements sometimes really do need an entry in the upgrade guide so that you can be successful as you make your transition to that LTS.
Okay, so let's talk about the 4 items. Mm-hmm. I know the top one you want to talk about a little bit more, so let's save that one. Okay. I actually want to go to the very bottom first.
Sure.
Restoring the link in the last breadcrumb. Now, this is me failing and did not have a .3 running today. But I upgraded another machine to .3 yesterday, and I was happy to find that I could click on the last link in the breadcrumb.
Right. So one of the usability things that the UX team has noted is most systems for breadcrumbs do not make the last link a clickable link because the last link is representing the current page. And in general, that makes sense. But they found for the console log that it was a crucial thing that you had to be able to do that in order to jump to the top of the console log. And so Hervé Lemur actually was the one who submitted the change to put that specific breadcrumb back, and it was backported.
Yep. So that one I was very happy for. Because that was always a little annoying. I
Right.
guess. Once we lost that, it's like, I need that. It's muscle memory, too.
It is, and you and I have talked about that in past sessions, exactly, that muscle memory is one of those things that it matters surprisingly in people's use of the software. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Remove negative letter spacing.
Yeah, so this one is
Is that literally negative spacing?
It is literally negative letter spacing, and it was, you look at the point in time when the regression happened, and that gives you a hint that not many people detected this, right? It was a regression in 2.340, so that means we didn't catch it in the 2.364 LTS at all, in any of the 364 releases. We didn't catch it in the 2.3, what was before 364? 346. So we missed it in 2 full LTS cycles. So it's not as dramatic as, but the reality is it was there. And people with really good eyesight were detecting and saying, hey, this needs to be fixed. And they were right. It really, there isn't much justification to do negative letter spacing, right? To risk that letters would trample over each other. That's not a healthy thing to do.
Font size, people, font size.
Right. Well, and really it's about usability and accessibility. And if you do negative letter spacing, you can actually harm your accessibility. It's hard for people to read it.
Okay. So that's been fixed.
Uh-huh.
Preventing an angry Jenkins. That's always a good thing. If you've never hit a real angry Jenkins page in the past, I question if you've been running Jenkins for a long time or not.
Now, come on. There are many of us who may never have seen one, but I have to acknowledge it was one of the most popular stickers at FOSDEM in Belgium. The angry Jenkins. Now it's on the artwork page, and it's a very cute thing, and we hope people never see it. We really do hope they never see it, because it says we got a stack trace we didn't know how to handle.
It's a rite of passage. If you get an angry Jenkins,
right, something went very wrong. We didn't like that, so we hope you never see it. But in this case, yeah, if you were using just HTTP to access an update center of your own, now all the Jenkins projects update centers are HTTPS based, right? So this would be a rather uncommon condition. But if you were seeing it, it's fixed.
So basically, if you had defined your own update center,
right,
non-SSL,
right,
and you pop that in there, you were going to get an angry
Yeah,
Jenkins.
and with Let's Encrypt now, non-SSL really should no longer be the case, right? We should be generally just using SSL to secure our HTTPS sites.
That's correct, except for the people that are still locked behind firewalls.
Exactly. If you're locked down, I understand, but hey, still, it's worth, even in those cases, trying to find ways. I know Damien DePortal of the Jenkins infrastructure team found ways to put an SSL certificate on a system that is absolutely behind a VPN. And it's possible. It can be done. And I think it's worth people doing it just for the hassles and problems it saves. I learned something recently, actually, Darren, about that. Copy and paste. The copy button only works through SSL on the Jenkins controller. So there's a little copy icon.
Right.
But it doesn't work if I don't have it over an SSL connection, because the browsers don't allow it. It's like, another reason to have SSL.
Copy's always very good. Nobody likes doing typing.
Exactly.
Okay, let's get to this first one here, because this is the one that you found the most interesting.
Right. Okay, so the concept here is that the WMI Windows Agent plugin has been deprecated, and it's been deprecated because it should be deprecated. The WMI Windows Agents plugin is a plugin that can launch an agent on a Windows computer by using the Windows Management Instrumentation interface to launch that agent. However, Microsoft has hardened and reinforced the interfaces to WMI to the point where it's no longer viable to use to launch an agent. And the choice then for the Jenkins project was, do we rework this plugin entirely so that we can still use something like WMI to launch agents, or we just admit that Microsoft has now created an SSH server that's very reliable and runs on Windows really well. So if you want to launch an agent on Windows, please just use SSH like you do with Linux agents. So WMI Windows Agents has been deprecated as a plugin. That means a UI appears to Jenkins users saying this plugin is deprecated, you should remove it. But prior to this change, when they click the remove button, other plugins that they had installed might cause that plugin to be reinstalled. And this is this concept of an implied dependency. What happened was, and now Darren, if you want to bring us back to that page, let's open up. Yeah, so here we have a page that talks about what this story is. And what happens is that Windows Agents was extracted from Jenkins Core many years ago. And it was previously a function of Jenkins Core that moved into a plugin. In order to not break compatibility, that plugin is declared to be an implied dependency of any plugin that has a dependency on Jenkins that is older than the extraction version. So Jenkins, what was it, 1.500? 1.547 was when it was split. So any plugin that depends on a Jenkins version older than 1.547 would be listed as depending on this plugin, and therefore you should not uninstall this plugin. Well, that means really old Jenkins plugins may block you from ever getting rid of this deprecated plugin.
So, with that in mind, do you want to take a look at Ace Editor?
I do, because, okay, so this one, we solved it by, for WMI Windows Agents, we solved it by making a change in Jenkins Core. That worked. But there are other plugins that are deprecated that might have this same pattern. We just had a new one arrive as a deprecation, Ace Editor. Ace Editor is a JavaScript library that was bundled into a Jenkins plugin 7 or 8 or 9 years ago. And you see there, it's got over 275,000 installations. It's installed almost everywhere, right? There are about 300,000 Jenkins installations, so about 80% of them have this plugin installed. Why is that? Well, that's because other plugins have had a dependency on, or an implied dependency on, this plugin. And now, Darren, if you'll click the Dependencies tab here, I am delighted to share that the required dependencies on this thing is empty. And that's a very good thing. Thanks to the work of Basil Crow, he broke out the one remaining actual dependency on this plugin. The Pipeline Groovy plugin had a real dependency on this plugin. And Basil's recent changes to that and releases have broken that dependency. That's great. It no longer depends on this ancient plugin. So the answer is, for users, upgrade your Pipeline Groovy plugin version to then be allowed to remove Ace Editor.
Right, because once you go in to manage plugins, you'll see this message here.
Exactly.
So the message that you see at the top of plugins page will show up inside of, where is it? Is it on just Manage Jenkins, or is it over in Manage Plugins?
I think it appears in Manage Plugins.
Manage Plugins, okay.
But you will see the message that says you have a deprecated plugin installed, and you should actively work to get rid of that plugin, right? It's deprecated. You shouldn't need it.
Which I've gone through, because there have been I'll say this politely, a rash of these deprecated plugins in the past 6 weeks, 8 weeks.
Right.
There's been 3 or 4 just based on
exactly
the baseline plugins. Because I don't install hardly any plugins. just on my controllers. And I've been seeing these pop up and like, oh, I can actually go and uninstall that. So I'll disable it, and then I will say uninstall. You got to reboot. Sure, why not? Restart it. Come back. It's gone. And it's
Right.
wonderful.
And the challenge is, if you still have an old version of Pipeline Groovy, of the Groovy
I wouldn't be able
pipeline,
to do that because that's still
right.
a
It will
hard-
say you have a hard dependency, but
Yeah.
also if you have one of these other plugins that
Mm-hmm.
lists an implied dependency, it may tell you, I'm sorry, you can't upgrade this, you can't remove this because that implied dependency has to be satisfied.
right.
And so the moral here, let's see, the first moral of the story is update your plugins. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Keep current with your versions of plugins. The other is when you see one of these deprecations, take active measures to look at your list of plugins and identify plugins that you don't actually need. Right? If you previously had the WMI Windows Agents plugin installed, you should remove it. I cannot imagine you're attempting to use that plugin because Microsoft very soon will absolutely forbid the technique this was using. And it's already very, very difficult to use it. So you should just remove it. The same applies to Ace Editor, right? It's a good thing to just get rid of. Now, those implied dependencies that you see here, there are many of these where you should probably say, I should remove that too. If you're using the Oracle Java SE Development Kit installer, that's a poor choice of a plugin because Oracle changed their license. And that plugin, by license agreements from Oracle, is no longer allowed to deliver you what you probably want. You should switch to the Temurin installer or a different way of installing your JDKs. So those kinds of things are worth you checking to see, could I get rid of this?
Okay. And that's really it.
That is it.
Except
Oh,
there's one more. There's a security advisory today at the time we're doing this, which is February 9th. And this is all around Git. It's not specific to anything in Jenkins, but we were just talking about implied dependencies. Git is an implied dependency for Jenkins. Right? Am I saying that
exactly.
even close?
Right. You
Because
said
it's
it
not
brilliantly.
required. You don't
No.
have to have Git.
Right. It's
But if you want to do some functions, you're going to need Git.
right. Well, and this one is a good one to understand what's happening because it tells you something about your own infrastructure. All right. If I am a container user and I use containers, then I am dependent on the Jenkins project's containers that are delivered by the project. Those containers depend on other people's containers, either Debian or UBI or Alpine or Alma Linux. And those other containers may ship components on which we depend, a kernel, a Git executable, a curl executable, a Java. Any one of those things, if they've got a vulnerability, you want to know about it. Well, that's what's happened here. This vulnerability is that command line Git had an issue, and those operating systems have updated their version of command line Git to resolve that issue in command line Git. So you need to upgrade your container image to use our latest container image so that you get these fixes. And now
Or if you've been baking your own image to run Jenkins in, right? If you weren't using any of the provided images, but you were instead taking the WAR file and baking your own image.
Yes. Okay, then you should revisit your life choices and reconsider that because yes, you're right, absolutely. If you are building completely your own image, then you really care about this.
Yeah.
And that absolutely you want to be sure that you've got this problem fixed. And you should revisit any other potential problems. One of the nice things about using other people's containers is they tend to focus on assuring that they've resolved issues and they're more widely used. If you build your own container without depending on the Jenkins container, you've now assumed all the responsibility to check it for its full health. Some people like that, but it's a responsibility you're assuming.
And this applies if you're running, it's not just about containers though. if you're running an older version of Jenkins, this isn't, or excuse me, an older version of Git, the same thing applies. If you're running it just on bare metal and you haven't upgraded your Git to, what is the correct, is this the correct number? 231.1?
Well, it depends on which operating system.
Which operating system?
The
Right.
Git project baseline patch for this particular problem, oh, you see it here.
Yeah.
Very good. Yeah. Goes all the way back to 2.30.
Right.
So they patched 2.30 and applied the same technique to 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, and 39.
Right. If you're running something prior to 2.30, using your phrase, you need to reconsider your life choices.
Right, and that's a good reason to say, oh yeah, why would I ever do that? And the answer is, yeah, you shouldn't. You need to get off those old ancient Git versions. And as forewarning, the Jenkins project is actively preparing to declare end of life for CentOS 7. One reason to get off is it uses Git 1.8.
Right. Officially uses 1.8.
Yeah, right.
From the official repos. That's where
the
yeah.
distribution provides 1.8. Right.
Right. So if you're running Jenkins from a container image, get a new container image. Now, here's the thing. How was this tagged? Because it's still technically 275.3, correct?
That is correct. So what you have to do is you say Docker pull, and then you say what the label is you're using. So you say Docker pull Jenkins/Jenkins : 2.375.3 -JDK11, or in my case,
Whatever it is.
JDK17 or whatever, or -Alpine.
So what you're saying is the images that were published
Have been
2 days ago
republished.
have been republished with this new fix.
Correct.
Okay, good.
If
And
they
just for-
need the fix, they were republished.
Got it. Okay. Well, I think that's probably it, right? Because
I think that is.
the Git thing was pretty big. Okay, so we'll be back in 4 weeks. You've already said it. You've already started planting the seed. If you're using the CentOS 7 based image, that will be going away at some point.
Right.
The next baseline that was selected for LTS was 387,
Right.
which I've got a LTS running internally, and I also have a weekly running internally. Let me tell you, you think going from 264, what was before 375?
364.
364. 364 to 375 was a big jump. Hold on to your hats. It's getting more interesting. So if you're not upgrading, you need to be upgrading.
Right. Absolutely. It's Java 11. Yes, you need to get there. And do you need to keep your plugins up to date? Yes, you need to do that.
Yeah. We keep hammering that home time and time again, and we will keep on doing that because it's true. Yes, I know it's annoying, but it's true. Okay. So we'll be back, in theory, if everything goes according to plan, on March 9th. Maybe a little bit later this time. We're a little early on this one, but meetings, right? Day job. Oh, wait, this is the day job, isn't it? Still had meetings. So we're working on meetings. So anyway, thanks for watching us if you're watching live. If you are here with us live, if you can give us a thumbs up, do the YouTube things before you split, that would be nice. And we will see you again in 4 weeks. Are there any holidays between now and then? I don't think so. So no holidays for anyone. There. No. If you have a holiday, enjoy your holidays. Why did I say that, Mark?
I don't know.
Okay, well, that's good. At least neither of us know. All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you in 4 weeks.